Let's be honest. Deep down, we all like to believe that we are good people. We see ourselves as rational, kind, and maybe even morally superior to others. We assume that, given the right circumstances, we would make the right choices, that we are self-aware, that we understand ourselves better than most people understand themselves. But what if I told you that you're not as good as you think? What if I told you that your mind plays tricks on you every single day, convincing you of an illusion of your own goodness? And what if I told you that simple thought experiments can prove it? Now, before you get defensive, pause for a moment. I'm not here to tell you that you're a bad person. This isn't about guilt or shame. This is about truth. And truth is often uncomfortable. But if you have the courage to face it, it can set you free in ways you never imagined. So, let's begin with this question. If you had lived in a different time, in a different society, under different influences, would you still be the same person you are today? Most people assume they would. We like to believe that our goodness, our intelligence, our sense of morality, these things are inherent to us, unshakable, independent of circumstances. But history tells a different story. There have been countless societies throughout history where things we consider deeply immoral today, slavery, oppression, even genocide, were accepted as normal. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The majority of people in those societies did not see themselves as evil. They saw themselves as good, just as you see yourself as good. So, the real question is, if you had been born in one of those societies, would you have stood against the injustice, or would you have gone along with it? Completely blind to the harm you were a part of? Be honest. The truth is, we are all shaped by our environments far more than we like to admit. Our beliefs, our values, even our sense of morality, they are not as original as we think. They are borrowed from the world around us. And if we had been born in a different time, under different influences, we might see the world in a completely different way without even realizing it. This is the first proof that you are not as good as you think, because your goodness is not entirely yours. It is, in large part, a product of your circumstances.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Now, let's take this even deeper with another thought experiment. Imagine you are walking down a street and you see a man lying on the ground, clearly in distress. He is struggling to breathe, reaching out for help. What do? Most people would say, of course, I would help him. It seems obvious. But psychological studies tell us something shocking. Most people, in real-world situations, do nothing. They walk past. They hesitate. They assume someone else will help. This is called the bystander effect. It has been documented in countless real-life situations where people in distress were ignored by crowds of seemingly good, normal individuals. The reason? People overestimate their own courage and compassion. In their minds, they are heroes. But in reality, when faced with the moment, they freeze. So, let me ask you again, if you were in that situation, would you help? Or would you hesitate, just like so many others have? The real answer is, you don't know. You want to believe you would. But until you are actually in that situation, your belief in your own goodness is just a theory. And history shows that most people's theories do not hold up in reality. Now let's go even deeper. Imagine you are in a room with a stranger, and you are given the power to press a button. If you press it, the stranger will receive a painful electric shock. You are told that this is part of an experiment and that you are not responsible. The scientist running the experiment takes full responsibility for whatever happens. Would you press the button? Most people say no. And yet, in the famous Milgram experiment, the majority of participants did exactly that. They delivered what they believed were painful, even deadly shocks to strangers, simply because an authority figure told them to. These were not bad people. They were ordinary people, just like you. And yet, when placed in a situation where obedience conflicted with morality, most of them chose obedience. So let me ask you, are you truly as moral as you think you are? Or are you simply lucky that your morality has never been truly tested? The deeper we go, the more unsettling the truth becomes. The reality is, most of us live with an illusion of our own goodness. We believe we are good because we have never been in situations that truly test our character. We believe we are self-aware, yet we fail to see how much of our thoughts and behaviors are shaped by invisible influences. We believe we are rational, yet we fall for cognitive biases every single day without realizing it. Now, this is not about making you feel bad. This is about waking you up, because only when you see the illusion for what it is can you begin to break free from it. Only when you question your own assumptions can you begin the journey toward true self-awareness. So here is the challenge. Start questioning everything. Question your beliefs. Question your reactions. Question your assumptions about yourself. When you feel anger, ask yourself, is this anger truly justified, or is it just an automatic response? When you feel certain about something, ask yourself, how do I know this is true? Could I be wrong? When you judge someone else, ask yourself, if I had lived their life with their experiences, would I be any different? Because here's the ultimate truth. True goodness is not about believing you are good. It is about constantly questioning yourself, constantly striving to be better, constantly recognizing that you are capable of both great kindness and great cruelty, depending on the circumstances. It is about humility. It is about awareness. It is about the willingness to see yourself as you truly are, not as you wish to be. So I leave you with this question. Are you willing to see the truth about yourself, even if it is uncomfortable? Are you willing to break free from the illusion? Because if you are, the next step is even more powerful. The next step is understanding how your mind deceives you every single day in ways you have never even considered. The mind's greatest trick, how your brain deceives you every day without you realizing it. The mind is the most powerful tool you will ever have, but it is also the greatest deceiver. It convinces you that you are in control, that you understand yourself, that you see reality as it truly is. But what if I told you that your mind is constantly tricking you, distorting your perception, and leading you to believe things that are not true? What if I told you that every single day, your thoughts, your decisions, and even your morality are being manipulated not by some external force, but by your own brain? The scariest part, you don't even realize it's happening. Let's start with a simple example. Have you ever had a memory that felt completely real, only to later discover that it never actually happened the way you remember? This is not an anomaly. This is how the brain works. Studies have shown that human memory is not a perfect recording device, it is a reconstruction. Every time you recall a memory, your brain subtly alters it, filling in gaps with assumptions, blending different experiences together, and sometimes even creating details that were never there. This means that many of the things you are absolutely certain about your past experiences, your childhood, even major life events, may not have happened exactly as you remember. But here's the thing, you don't doubt them. You believe your memories are accurate because they feel real. This is the first great deception of the mind. It creates an illusion of certainty, even when certainty does not exist. But memory is just the beginning. Let's talk about perception. Right now, you believe that you see the world as it truly is. But the truth is, you don't see reality, you see an interpretation of reality. Your brain takes in raw sensory data and then processes it through layers of biases, assumptions, and past experiences before presenting it to you as truth. This is why two people can witness the exact same event and remember it completely differently. This is why what you see, what you hear, what you believe, none of it is as objective as you think. Your brain fills in gaps, edits out details it deems unimportant, and even alters your perception to fit your existing beliefs. Think about optical illusions. When you see an illusion, your brain presents you with an image that is different from reality. But it doesn't feel like a mistake, it feels real. Now realize this, if your brain can deceive you with something as simple as an optical illusion, what else is it deceiving you about? How many of your beliefs are based on distorted perceptions? How many of your judgments about people, about situations, about yourself are based on incomplete or altered information? Now, let's go even deeper. Your brain is not just deceiving you about the past and the present, it is also manipulating your future decisions. This is where cognitive biases come in. Cognitive biases are mental shortcuts that your brain uses to make decisions quickly. They help you navigate the world without having to analyze every single detail, but they also lead to massive errors in thinking. For example, the confirmation bias makes you seek out information that supports what you already believe while ignoring anything that contradicts it. This means that once you have formed an opinion, your brain actively works to reinforce it, even if it's wrong. The illusion of explanatory depth makes you believe that you understand complex topics far more deeply than you actually do. You think you know how a car engine works until someone asks you to explain it in detail. You think you understand politics, science, morality, until you are forced to break it down step by step and realize that much of your knowledge is just surface-level assumptions. The Dunning-Kruger effect makes people with little knowledge overestimate their competence, while those who are truly knowledgeable often underestimate themselves. This means that many of the people who are most confident in their beliefs actually know the least, while those who are hesitant often understand the topic far more deeply. So let me ask you this. How many of your opinions, your beliefs, your so-called knowledge, how much of it is actually true? And how much of it is just an illusion created by your own mind? Now, let's talk about morality. You believe you are a good person. You believe your actions are justified. But what if I told you that your moral decisions are not as rational as you think? Studies in moral psychology show that people often make moral judgments based on emotion first, and then use logic to justify those emotions after the fact. This means that most of your moral reasoning is not reasoning at all, it is rationalization. You feel something is wrong, and then your brain constructs an explanation for why it is wrong. But if that initial feeling had been different, you would construct an entirely different explanation. This is why morality shifts across cultures and time periods. It is why people can justify actions that seem horrific in hindsight. It is why you can look at history and wonder, how could they have believed that was right? Without realizing that future generations might look at you and ask the exact same question. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine there is a train speeding down a track, and 5 people are tied to the rails ahead. You have the power to pull a lever and divert the train onto another track, where only 1 person is tied down. Do you pull the lever? Most people say yes. The logic is simple. Saving 5 lives is better than saving 1. But now, let's change the scenario. Instead of pulling a lever, you are standing on a bridge, and the only way to stop the train is to push a large man off the bridge onto the tracks, and stopping the train with his body. The math is the same, 1 life to save 5, but suddenly, most people hesitate. Why? Because morality is not purely logical. It is emotional, and your brain reacts differently when you have to take direct action rather than pulling a lever. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your moral instincts are not universal truths, they are quirks of human psychology, shaped by emotion, culture, and personal experience. So again, I ask you, are you really as good as you think? Or are you simply following an internal script that was programmed into you by forces you barely understand? Now, let's take this to its ultimate conclusion. If your memories are unreliable, if your perceptions are distorted, if your decisions are manipulated by biases, and if your morality is shaped by factors outside of your control, then who are you, really? Are you the person you think you are? Or are you just a collection of conditioned responses, biological impulses, and cognitive illusions? This is not an easy question to face. But if you have the courage to face it, it can change everything. Because here's the truth. The only way to break free from the mind's deceptions is to become deeply, painfully self-aware, to question everything, to doubt your own certainty, to recognize that your thoughts are not necessarily reality, that your beliefs are not necessarily truth, that your sense of self is not as solid as it seems. This is the path to real wisdom. Not accumulating more knowledge, but stripping away falsehoods. Not reinforcing beliefs, but dismantling illusions. Not being more certain, but being more open to the possibility that you might be wrong. So I leave you with this question. If everything you believe about yourself, about the world, about right and wrong, if all of it could be an illusion, then what is left when you strip everything away? Who are you beneath the layers of conditioning, beyond the tricks of the mind? Because if you can answer that question, you will have found something far more valuable than certainty. You will have found truth. Escaping the illusion, how to break free from the lies your mind tells you and see reality as it truly is. If you've made it this far, something within you is already shifting. You are beginning to see that much of what you believed about yourself, about others, and about reality itself may not be as solid as you once thought. This realization can be terrifying, but it is also the beginning of something extraordinary, the beginning of true awareness. Because if you can see the illusion for what it is, you can begin to free yourself from it. But how do you do that? How do you escape the mental traps that have been shaping your perception for your entire life? How do you break free from the unconscious programming that has dictated your thoughts, emotions, and decisions without your awareness? How do you see reality as it truly is, without the distortions of bias, fear, and conditioning? The first step is brutal honesty. You must be willing to admit that you do not know yourself as well as you think you do. You must be willing to acknowledge that your mind is not always your ally, that it deceives you, manipulates you, and often leads you astray. This is not easy, because the ego, the part of you that wants to be right, that wants to feel in control, will resist this truth with everything it has. The ego thrives on certainty. It wants to believe that it already has the answers, that its version of reality is correct. But if you truly want to break free, you must be willing to question everything, including yourself. Start with your emotions. Most people believe that their emotions are reliable indicators of truth. If they feel angry, they assume something must be wrong. If they feel hurt, they assume someone has wronged them. If they feel afraid, they assume there is danger. But emotions are not objective truths, they are reactions, shaped by past experiences, beliefs, and unconscious patterns. Just because you feel something does not mean it is an accurate reflection of reality. So the next time you feel a strong emotion, do not react immediately. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, is this emotion truly justified, or is it just a conditioned response? Is the story my mind is telling me about this situation actually true, or is it just a narrative I have constructed? By doing this, you create a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap, you have a choice. You can either continue being a slave to your emotions, reacting automatically to everything that happens, or you can take control and respond with awareness. But emotions are just one layer of the illusion. To truly free yourself, you must also question your thoughts. Most people assume that their thoughts are their own, that the voice in their head is them. But have you ever stopped to question where your thoughts come from? If you sit in silence and observe your mind, you will notice something strange. Thoughts arise on their own, without your control. They come and go like clouds in the sky. You do not choose them. They appear. And yet, most people are completely identified with their thoughts. They believe that whatever their mind tells them must be true. But here's the truth. Your thoughts are not you. They are just mental activity, conditioned by years of programming, past experiences, and subconscious influences. Many of them are repetitive, many of them are irrational, and many of them are simply echoes of societal conditioning. So if you want to escape the illusion, you must learn to observe your thoughts without identifying with them. You must learn to step back and watch your mind as if you were watching a movie. When a thought arises, do not automatically believe it. Question it. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it helping me or holding me back? By doing this, you begin to reclaim control over your mind instead of allowing it to control you. Now, let's go even deeper. If you have questioned your emotions and your thoughts, the next step is questioning your identity. Who are you, really? If you strip away everything you have been told about yourself, if you let go of every label, every belief, every role you play in society, what remains? Most people never ask this question. They spend their entire lives constructing a false identity, attaching themselves to things that are impermanent: jobs, relationships, social status, personal achievements. But all of these things can be taken away. And when they are, what is left? The truth is, most people's sense of self is fragile because it is built on illusions. They believe they are their achievements, their reputation, their possessions. But these things do not define you. They are external, and anything external can be lost. So if you want to find true freedom, you must go beyond the false self. You must find the part of you that is unshakable, the part of you that remains the same regardless of circumstances. But this is not just a philosophical exercise. This has real, practical implications for your life. Because the more you free yourself from illusion, the more power you gain over your own mind. Imagine living a life where you are no longer controlled by automatic reactions, where you are no longer a prisoner of your emotions, where you are no longer deceived by false beliefs, where you are no longer afraid of losing things, because you have found something within yourself that can never be lost. This is not just a dream. This is a reality that is available to you right now if you are willing to do the work. But let me be clear, this path is not easy. Most people will never take it because it requires a level of self-honesty and self-discipline that is rare. It requires you to face uncomfortable truths about yourself. It requires you to dismantle your own illusions piece by piece. It requires you to let go of the comforting lies that have made you feel safe but have also kept you trapped. But if you have the courage to walk this path, the rewards are beyond anything you can imagine. You will not just see the world differently, you will see yourself differently. You will move through life with a sense of clarity and peace that most people will never know. You will no longer be at the mercy of external circumstances. You will no longer be manipulated by fear, by desire, by the opinions of others. You will be free. So now I leave you with one final question. Are you ready to wake up? Are you ready to see through the illusion? Because if you are, there is no turning back. Once you begin to see the truth, you cannot unsee it. But that is the beauty of it, because the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always better than the most comforting lie. And once you embrace it, you will never be the same again.